Hey, what's up, everybody? I'd like to welcome you to the Audio Programmer Podcast. This is episode 2. We're starting from episode 0, so this is the third episode, just like arrays in C++, most other programming languages as well. So
There you go.
we're here with Bruce Dawson, who is a software engineer at Output. How's it going, Bruce?
Hey, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm great.
Yeah, I'm doing
Weather's finally
good.
starting to warm up here in London, and
Oh, good.
yeah. London, England is actually a pretty pleasant place to be when the sun's out. But
Is it? That's good.
yeah, but when it's not, it's pretty terrible.
Yeah, I've yet to visit, so I need to get out there and come see you and show me
Absolutely.
around.
Well, it's funny you say that because I'm actually going to be consulting for Rolly for the Audio Developer Conference later on
Okay.
this year. That hasn't been really formally announced, but I guess this is kind of a first kind of teaser.
Oh, there
right
you
here.
go.
Yeah, the
Spoiler.
exclusive. Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
exclusive scoop right
Yeah,
here.
there you go. Heard it here first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, right on.
So that's going to be later on this year, and Jake came out to that.
Yeah, you sure did.
Yeah, 2
Sure did.
years ago. I was still a student
Yeah.
then.
Were you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Look at you now.
Yeah.
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 Trying to come up.
You're doing it, man.
Yeah. Jake Penn is another software engineer at Output.
Yep.
We met 2 years ago. When
Yeah.
I was in my last year at Goldsmiths University. That was 2 years ago. Feels like centuries ago. But time
Right.
time
Things
flies
move
when
quick.
yeah, time flies when you're having
It
fun.
does.
So
Absolutely.
So before we get into things, we'll just make a couple quick announcements.
Yeah.
So I'll just take a moment just to talk about the Patreon. So the Audio Programmer has a Patreon, as you know. When you're coding and learning how to code and doing podcasts and doing all these different things that need to happen to make the Audio Programmer work, well, it takes time, and sometimes it's good to feel the support of the community and everything. So if it's something, it's not something that I push people to do, but if you want to support the community, we have the Patreon. It's on patreon.com/theaudioprogrammer. We have various different packages. So we have t-shirts, we have stickers, have hoodies, and I think I might do one where I actually give my time. So like if somebody wants to do like a one-off payment, then basically we could spend time talking about code, talking about career advancement. Not that I know a whole lot about that, but yeah, we could talk about whatever people want to talk about. So I'll probably be adding that soon. Also, just wanted to make a quick announcement. If you're in England or in the London area, on the I put in my notes April. So Saturday, 13th and 14th of April, there's going to be a filter design workshop given by Will Fellhaber. So if you're part of the community or you know about the community, you probably know about Will. He goes by Wilf in the Discord chat, and he's a very knowledgeable individual, and he writes loads of articles for the website. And he's given a workshop on filter design. That's going to be at the University of West London. A big shout out to my man Peter Dowsett, who's putting that together, and I will put the details of that in the link below on the video. So, or if you want to know more information, just feel free to ping me. So that's it for announcements. So Bruce,
Yo.
yeah, enjoying that LA weather out there, huh?
Absolutely. Well, it'll rain out here, and then it'll be sunny, and then it'll rain, and then it'll be sunny. So it's kind of hit or miss. And when I say sunny, I mean like it'll be, 80 degrees, or it'll be like 50 degrees.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
As long as the sun still comes out, that's all good with me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's gorgeous today.
Yeah. So Bruce and I have known each other for a little while. We actually met in person a few months ago when I was out in LA for NAM. And,
yeah, that was nice.
And I stopped by the Output office, and there's a really exciting energy that's happening there at Output. And for people that don't know, Output are making what, in my opinion, are some of the most exciting plugins on the market. You have Arcade, and the interfaces and the back end design of it is so clean, and I really love the aesthetic that you've got there at Output.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a big team effort, and everybody really puts their best foot forward there. And we're not here to just make the same synths over and over, but we're here to innovate and really push it forward. And it's a lot of fun.
And another thing that's really exciting is that you you and Jake are doing the Kadenze course
Yeah.
for a Juice plugin course on Kadenze,
Yep. Yep.
and that's been really popular as well. And
Yeah.
it's something
Absolutely.
I've been actually meaning to check that out myself.
All
So
right.
so we'll talk about that a little bit later, I guess.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Really excited to talk about that.
Yeah, cool. So I think a good place for us to start might be at the beginning. Maybe let's just talk about you, how you got into software, how you got into
Absolutely.
audio programming. Yeah, go ahead. I'll
Yeah.
let you take it away.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Right on, man. So yeah, I kind of grew up always having a interest in computers and interest in electronic music. Definitely at the age where raves were a big thing back in Los Angeles in the day, and the internet was brand new, and it was an interesting world out there, and a lot of that like sparked my attention growing up. Got older, started actually learned how to DJ when I was early 20s, and kind of turned that into kind of a career for a bit, where I was DJing all around California and the West Coast, and Mexico and Hawaii, and traveling around doing all that. And
What was your DJ name? What kind of music did you do?
I go by good question. I go by synchronometry, like the word synchronicity and geometry put together, like
Nice.
So it's you can find that on SoundCloud, Instagram, Facebook. If you're ever looking for some techno and psytrance, that kind of music.
Nice.
So that's a project I've had for nearly a decade now, and it's really taken me a lot of places. And one of the places it took me was to graduate school to get my my master's in music technology over at California Institute of the Arts, which is where I met Jake Penn, one of our other programmers, and where the music technology program there I studied under Ajay Kapoor, Jordan Hogenbaum, and Owen Vallis, who are all involved with Kadenze. So it's really cool to have gone to a school and established some roots and have grown something from being a student to, CalArts connected me to Output.
And what year was this when you started going back to school?
This was 2013.
Okay.
And graduated in 2015, and then started working with Output in the fall of 2015.
Nice.
So it was a 2-year graduate program, music technology, and then I got my bachelor's of science and computer science from a school called DeVry University out here in Southern California. And so Jordan, who was my mentor, Jordan Hogenbaum, and he really connected me with Output, who actually was just a personal friend with one of our oldest employees, Jay Caston, and they knew each other, and they connected me with Output. And I just graduated, and I went over to Output's Hollywood office, and interviewed with them, and it was interesting. I actually, I was fresh out of school, and I was looking for work, and absolutely looking to work in this field, but coming out of school, you're looking for, some sort of job to make things happen. So I actually had an offer for another company who made software, but it was not music software. It was a lot less exciting. And they needed to hear back the week of, and I met with Output, and Output basically had 24 hours to make a decision. And, so we kind of set it up all within 24 hours. And, I was working at Output the following week, and, and it was really cool, and they were a new company. They were about 2 years old at that time, maybe less.
Mm-hmm.
And their primary source of instruments, was contact libraries.
Mm-hmm.
And they worked with Native Instruments to make their first plugins, Rev, which was a contact instrument based around reverse sounds, and that kind of really like, it was a new, interesting synth that really kind of like put them on the map. And when that was coming out, I wasn't part of the company yet, but when that was coming out, that was kind of like the night before our founders and co-founders, Greg Lehrman, Neil Hellman, and John Nye, they were, excited to launch this new thing and kind of having dinner and like, let's see, what happens with this. If we just made a instrument, cool. If we just made a company, cool. Like, let's see what happens. And it happened. It happened for them, and the next thing they put out was Signal, and then I believe Exhale came after that.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me if I'm wrong. And then right after Exhale was Movement, and that was what I came into to make for Output.
Mm-hmm.
So, getting hired by Output, I was their first in-house C++ developer, and really their first C++ developer ever. And I'm really, really grateful for Output for having taken the chance on me, as a kid out of college that said like, yes, I can do this, and building as we know, those in the professional industry, building a synthesizer or plug-in in college versus building a synthesizer in the professional world are like two completely different ball games, but here I am. I came out of college and I was like, yes, I can absolutely do this.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was going to say, can you expand on that for people that may not be aware of the differences between making something that you would use in your university versus making something for a company?
Absolutely. That's a great question. When I'm in college, when I was in college building, plugins, really the plugins were, pretty one-dimensional. It's like, here's this concept you just learned, implement this concept and make a delay plugin or something, slap some knobs on the screen, and make sure that it doesn't crackle and there's no garbage in the buffers, and that's tough enough to learn just, starting as it is. But really when you get into the professional world, it's like you have, complex signal chains, complex UIs, complex concepts, you have preset management, you have, authorization key management, you're talking to the internet from within a plugin, it's like a lot of it is outside the scope of what you can learn within, a 16-week class or a 20-week class, 2 hours a week or whatever. Mm-hmm. And just coming out of, college, the skills I had were, not doing online, authorization key and encryption and, advanced like UI design and curved sliders and, all this, wild stuff, and, but when I, really took on the gig, I was just so ecstatic to be, in the industry, to get my foot in, and, it was just such an opportunity. And, we did Movement in about 6 months, maybe 6.5 months by the time I started in September. And then it launched like early May. I think it was May 13th, 2016, I believe. Mm-hmm. And from the time I got into the time, that came out, I was just, one guy with the help of a few others, Jake Penn, who actually helped me out a little bit during that time. He was still in school at the time, but he came in and kind of gave me some advice on, how to make the UI better. And he helped out with a few tasks. Mm-hmm. And then had some help with some other companies, our friends over at Sign Vibes and Future Audio Workshops. They lended a hand in regard to advice to me, via email and meetings like this, just like, here I was, this one guy, but what I do have is resources to ask for help, and not be afraid to ask for help. So through the help of these people, they were able to help me get through it. And so basically work around the clock for 6 months straight, every night, every day, every weekend. And that's not how we work at Output today. we respect our weekends. But when you're a startup, it's kind of like whatever it takes. And we were a startup, and I was their first C++ developer. And for me, like on a personal level, like I felt so like just grateful to have the opportunity that like failure was not an option, and I was going to do whatever it took. And I knew if I could do this, if I could complete this, that I'm in, like I did it, and so it was a very personal project for me. And to this day, probably one of the like greatest achievements in my life is just being able to do that on my own as a kid out of college.
Yeah.
And today we're in a totally different place.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you've moved offices now, and
we moved offices. We're growing on up. We're it's a legit company now. It's nice,
Yeah.
And we do everything in house, and we're very specific about every detail. The attention to detail and all facets of what you do is what really makes something that's good, great. Yeah.
That's really cool. So, did you have so you were talking a little bit about your mentor that you got some help along the way.
Yeah.
And so, did you feel that it took you a really long time to kind of get up to the task of building a professional plugin? Because I've actually had the fortune coming out of university of being around a couple companies, and before that exposure, I wasn't really aware of what sort of level of proficiency it took to really build something professional. It's something I'm still learning about, but
absolutely,
it would be difficult for me to imagine going into a startup and not having seen that myself, and
absolutely,
and not really knowing where that bar is. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So
how did you find that for yourself? How did you find that bar of getting to that level of proficiency when there's no senior developer? You are the senior developer.
Yeah, absolutely. It was tough, and it was just a huge learning experience, and unfortunately, it was some trial and error. And the way our code is today, which we'll get into in a bit, is a lot different than the way it was when I was writing it myself, and, so really it was just a constant matter of, reiteration as I was setting things up, and one major difference in how I work today versus how I worked on my first plugin, is, or first professional plugin, is the ability to really stop and not just code your way into the plugin. I know when we're getting started, the habit is to just start coding because we want to code. We're excited to code. So we take a problem, we just start diving right into it, and we kind of don't really have the bird's eye view of the problem before we start walking the path, And if you can stop and really like take a look at like here's all the features we're going to implement. Here's everything we want this thing to do. Now we're going to take all these features, and we're going to break them down into simplest terms, right? And we're going to work on section by section until each section's complete. And we're not going to try to do everything at once, but we're going to be smart about how we organize and how we approach problems. So you're going to take all the like features and chunk them together, and this is all part of one task. And before you even get started on, say you have 4 features that are related, before you just start coding the first one, it's like let's take a step back and just kind of look at the 4 features and see what do these have in common. How do these relate, and how can I build this in a smart way to where all 4 of these things are going to be able to interact with each other in a smart way. Because one of the most difficult concepts to get is really like giving that proper planning and building systems for managing different aspects of your plugin. And so one thing I've really learned over time is just like the concept of coding with the separation of concerns, where each management system or module or component or whatever, it's concerned with one thing only, and that's what that does. Otherwise you end up with these like mega classes, these mega managers that they load a preset and they do the parameters and they, you know,
Yeah.
connect to the internet too and authorize your key. Like,
Yeah.
we gotta split all these things up and let them just worry about themselves.
And that's a lot better for debugging as well, isn't it? Because you can isolate each one of those processes on its own.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what you bring up is a concept of system design that I've heard numerous times from experienced developers about this concept
Yeah.
of each class should really only do one thing and one thing
Yeah.
only.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Going back to when you started at Output,
Yeah. hmm
what was the first big project that you embarked on?
It was movement. It was straight into deep waters. It was in the door into the deep end.
Uh huh.
Had like about 4 weeks, 5 weeks to kind of play around with a like a pseudo framework that we were given. So Output had some of our friends at Sign Vibes, and I'm forgetting the other name, but a developer friend of ours, Stephen Blinkhorn. I don't remember the name of his company at the moment, but him and the guys over at Sign Vibes, they got together like a pseudo framework that was like built on Juice for us to start building things. And today we've built our own framework that's a layer on top of Juice, something we call Atlas. And that was the name of the original when it kind of became the version 2 of Atlas. So first 4 or 5 weeks was kind of looking at what they had provided and like their demo plugins and really getting, just getting the hang of like the tools that we did have so that way I can understand what I needed to start building. And then just starting to kind of do some research on like basic, DSP algorithms we didn't have, like, stereo separation and, delays and stuff. Cause, unlike Contact or Reactor or these other apps, when you're coding in C++, you don't have access to DSP aside from the fact that Juice now has a DSP library. But when I started there, Juice did not have a DSP library. So if you wanted a reverb, you need to code it. You need to find, something on musicdsp.org or something and mess with that and just play with, open source stuff and figure it out. Otherwise you got to license it from somebody who does know what they're doing or find another framework that has a DSP library or something. So really it was kind of first few weeks was playing in the sandbox, getting familiar, and then it was straight into movement once we had a semi-solid plan.
And what is movement exactly for people that may not know?
Yeah. So movement is a rhythm-based effects plugin. It has like 4 modulation engines in it and 2 separate DSP signal chains that can be all, what we call macroed together. And a macro in the Output synth world is, adjusting the parameters of a knob based on another knob given a range. So in movement, there's a big XY pad in the middle, and the macros connect the knobs of the DSP parameters and the modulation engine parameters to the XY pad, so that way you can move it around and play with it in real time and get like 4 different rhythmic sounds that you kind of crossfade between in the 4 different corners of the XY pad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about just the kind of philosophy? So coming into creating that, you were talking about this concept of developing an idea and taking that and really making that something that's on paper before you start going and coding it. Can you talk just about conceptually what movement was about? Like what sort of need what sort of need did you feel that filled, and what was that conversation like where you decided to kind of say, okay, we need to build this thing?
Right. Absolutely. So even before I even talk about the inspiration for movement, the inspiration for movement really comes from the inspiration that came from Rev and Signal and Exhale. As our CEO Greg, he's a composer, and he, before I was around, he was making these patches and stuff to be able to make music the way that he wanted to be able to make it. And instead of spending all these hours setting up all this modulation in his Logic sessions, they found like, hey, let's try to figure out how to make tools that, do all this modulation and give it the sound that, he'd like to make. Like, let's speed up the process. Usually that's the motivation behind, creating something new. It's like, hey, let's take this thing that we need to do and let's do it more efficiently with a new tool.
Mm-hmm.
So that came from, that concept went into Rev and then went into Signal. And Signal, just a little info for anybody that doesn't know about Signal. It's a contact instrument, and it's similar to Movement. It's not an effect. It is a synth, and Movement's based on the effects part of Signal. And Signal is a dual oscillator chromatic synthesizer, sample-based synthesizer that just has a really, really good sound with the dual layer oscillators that it has, plus the DSP chain is very like focused around modulation. So it's Movement is basically Signal without the oscillators.
I see.
If this makes sense. So it is the signal chain and the way that Signal works minus the oscillators. That way you can put your own source into it, and you can put whatever you want in there. It could be a saw wave, it could be vocals, it could be white noise, like whatever you want. Mm-hmm. Movement does some cool stuff to it with the modulation and the effects in there.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
One question I thought of, just going back to, you were talking about that you've created a framework that's on top of the Juice framework, and can you talk a little bit more about that? So did you feel mm-hmm. Is that like an abstraction layer that has made everything easier to use, or
yes.
was it?
Yes.
Or was it more like you were saying about that there were things that you felt were missing from the Juice library, like things like reverbs and little like kind of effects processors that you've built in there? I'll let you take it away.
Sure. Yeah. The layer that we built above Juice in our in-house framework, what it really does is make the app development process quicker for us. Mm-hmm. So initially we had to build Atlas on top of Juice. And what we did was build a generic component library and DSP library, and basically everything that you could use to build a synth. We made a generic layer of it, and then we made a product-specific layer of it. And our product-specific layers say that's what Arcade is. And beneath that, we have our generic components. So that way, when we're prototyping and doing R&D in-house, we can whip up new ideas quickly with the generic modules that we've made. Mm-hmm. And then when you want to change them to do something different, you make a product-specific version of that and get going on that. And it took some time initially to make that. It's constant work in progress. I kind of take the role of maintaining the framework at output. Some others help out as well, but I seem to be the most passionate about it. So definitely we use it every day, and it's a work in progress. And it took about 2 years of building it out first, because Arcade took about 2 years. Mm-hmm. It was a big project, big ambitious project, and we were doing a lot of unknowns in there, and doing a lot of just research, and development to see if our crazy ideas were not so crazy.
That's a good segue into Arcade. So can you tell us a little bit more about Arcade?
Yeah, Arcade. So if you haven't checked it out yet, you need to go do that right now. Go to output.com. Go check that out. It is our latest music application, and it is it can be used as a plugin in your studio sessions or standalone. And it is a living application. It's our own ecosystem that it's an instrument that we are constantly releasing new content for daily. What we have in Arcade is what we call lines, and each line is like a new product per se. So you get, when you own a subscription to Arcade, you have access to all this new content that gets released. We're releasing content daily. So the lines, they're themed products. So we have one that's called Hooked. and that's very similar to one of our best-selling plugins, Exhale. And Hooked is, a whole, you know, uh, 15 key arrangement of vocal samples and loops
Mhm.
that are all mangled and sound really cool and can be pitched to any key that you're working in. And then within Arcade, so each line has a kit, right? It has a series of kits, which are presets basically. So, and when you have access to the lines, you can download the kits and you load up the kits, and then each kit will have 15 keys, and depending on the kit, it'll have like some bass lines and then some kick drum patterns, and then hats and snares, and then cool arpeggiated synths, and you can really uh, tweak the arrangement however you want. And then on within the 15 keys that are used for Arcade, those are all white keys, and the black keys, those are all what we call modifiers, and those allow you to twist and mangle the samples however you want. And yeah, we have a couple different options, and yeah, so it's a really fun plugin, and it's just constantly being updated, and it's probably one of our most popular since yet.
Amazing. I saw a commercial on Instagram for it the other day, and it was it was really cool. It was just like this producer, I can't forget, I don't remember who it is, but
Okay.
he had like a vocal. It was like a vocal line from Arcade, and then he just repitched it, and then the way he fit it into the beat was really awesome, and it must be really cool to see when the content first comes in and it's very raw and you don't know
Oh
how
yeah.
producers are going to use it, and then
Right.
seeing what happens on the other side of that, how producers kind of
Absolutely.
flip that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do all of the video content, all of our loops and samples, all of our audio content, all of our software content. It's all made at home, right there at Output headquarters in Los Angeles. And I'm really proud of the team that puts all that together. They do an amazing job, and it's just constantly delivering just super, fun to watch content. And whether or not I worked at Output, I would still be watching their content because it is, it's always relevant, it's always interesting, and it's always just high quality, and it's great.
Damn, you're making me want to produce again.
Yeah, get in there, man. Set that keyboard up behind you.
I
It's
know.
lonely on the wall up there.
I know it is. It is lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
That must be really interesting from just a product standpoint too, because so many people, they focus on so many software companies, they focus on the software itself, and then they really just kind of outsource for the content itself and get other people
Right.
to. And do you feel that gives you? I imagine if I was there, it would give me more of like a feeling of unity, being able
Oh,
to
absolutely.
see what content is actually being produced, and then how that kind of circles back around into Arcade as a product, and what that means and what that's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool to see. We've got some amazing sound designers and composers in house, and they are all 100% serious about the music, and it is their passion in their lives. And I'm really honored to be able to work with such good musicians as a developer. It's just really cool to see all the different teams just really lead the way in what they do.
Yeah.
Whether it's our sound designers or marketing or customer support or our developers, uh, everybody, everybody's awesome, and really puts their best foot forward. So yeah, it's definitely inspiring, and they make such good music, and it makes me want to make music because I'm competitive. And I like to, and when people are doing awesome stuff around me, it makes me want to do awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That must be an exciting energy.
absolutely.
I was gonna say, what was I gonna ask? I was gonna ask something, and now I've just lost it.
Well, it's all good.
Oh yes, I remember now. One of the things that's striking to me is the UI design and the interface design that you
Yep.
have there at Output.
Yeah.
Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Do you help design that, or is that
No, no, no. Actually, our design team's led by Neil Hellman, who's been he's one of our co-founders, and he's just taken that role very seriously as long as Output's been around. And one of our first UI designers, his name was Jonas Salas. I believe that's his last name. Forgive me if I got that wrong. But yeah, Jonas was with the company for about the first 4 years. He still does some contract work for us, but really, he just kind of came up with really cool ideas, and Output was just interested in making cool, modern looking synths that are easy to use. If you notice, a common theme on all of our applications are the macro system. And usually on our front page, we'll have like 4 big, cool looking sliders or an XY pad or something. The aesthetic of how it looks is, just as important as, what the sounds that it's making. Of course, if it looks good and it sounds bad, nobody's going to use it, right? Mm-hmm. And the sound quality is at the forefront. But there's just something to be said about the attention to detail from the graphic element. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's something that Output's always really prided themselves in, and that was one of the things. And another thing I had to learn how to do when I started Output with movement was like, how do I make these sliders with all these weird curves? Like if you look at our UIs, we've got some interesting sliders that are like semicircles or some sort of interesting curve, and mm-hmm. When you're a beginner and you're looking through the Juice demo, you're like, where are the curved sliders? How do I do this? Yeah. But then it all makes sense after a while. It all starts to click. And I definitely go over how to implement sliders from the graphical aspect in the Kadenze course. Yeah. So if you're interested in how Output, makes our sliders, look so cool, we cover that in the Kadenze course. And that the second part of the Kadenze course, that's actually coming out this week. So be on the lookout, guys.
Sweet. We'll talk about the Kadenze course here in a moment. But before that, I just wanted to jump into a quick question from one of the group members from our Discord, Justin CH, because it's just related to what we were just talking about. And he says, I've always noticed Output had some good interfaces. I like how they try to push moving audio software UI forward while remaining intuitive to the user who usually just wants to get the sound right, and move on with production. I'd be curious to know if during their development process, do they start doing iterative UI design early, and does the interface design end up influencing the processing and concept at the end of the product?
That's a great question. We definitely start iterations on UI design at first. Getting, UI design is going to undergo a lot of iterations, especially, when we've got a team like Output that is, pays attention to detail and is very passionate about their opinion on the details, Mm-hmm. So we definitely iterate on the UI early. The UI does not influence the sound that we're making, because typically the tool that we're making, the concept behind the audio processing, is what guides the UI design itself. Mm-hmm. And usually the UI design is a reflection of the sound engine that we've created.
I see.
Yeah.
And I think this is another question from Casimir, who's another member of our Discord. So he says, I don't know how many questions we're allowed to ask, but I often used Exhale a lot by Output, and wondering how they're working on, if they're working on anything similar but more user friendly. They only give you the option to use the presets they've already made. It's probably the best vocal engine I've used. The only flaw is that I can't put in custom audio. Do you have any thoughts on that? Would you say that that's no? I'll let you speak.
Yeah. One word answer: hooked.
Yeah.
We've got the hooked, line in Arcade, and that's really our sequel to Exhale at the moment. Nice. And there's just endless kits in there, just full of unique sound sources. And one of the cool things about Arcade is that you can use your own samples.
Nice.
So you can check out the hooked presets. and swap out, drop your samples straight on the keys in the UI, and just get playing immediately. So if you liked Exhale, I know you'll love Hooked. So go check that out. Go check out Arcade.
Nice. One key question that I wanted to ask about on this, I have so many questions, but one is about subscription models. So many, it tends to polarize people. People tend to either love it or hate it. And I was wondering what you feel, what you think about it, essentially.
Right. It's a good question. I understand both sides of it. I understand people want to own things in perpetuity, and they want it to be theirs forever. And definitely, intellectual property versus physical property. It's like, unless you're leasing a car, you usually own the physical thing that you have. So this is subscription-based services are really, they're starting to take over with the digital world at the moment. Everybody's running a subscription service, and so really, to me, it's not really a question of whether you have a subscription service. It's what are you offering that backs that price to justify what you are using it for. And, something like Arcade, like if you stop paying your subscription and you have Arcade in a project, like your project's still going to sound the same. You're not going to be missing that layer from your session when you open it up 3 months later after you stopped using it. And if you do want to start using it again, you just sign up again and then you're using it. And some people, they're a lot more able and willing to justify a $10 a month fee versus paying $200-$300 for something up front, which is another reason why some of these rent to own programs have been so popular. And Movement has a rent to own program on Splice. So if that's something, if somebody wanted to buy Movement, they have the option of, paying for it in full, or they can do the rent to own deal through there. So the subscription based services, it's really about what is it offering. With Arcade, we offer, daily updates and a constant improving ecosystem of, just new sources of sounds for you to be able to get up and make music immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is something I'm kind of speaking from an outside perspective. I find that that just things in general, products in general, are tending to move towards longer relationships rather than I guess pre-internet or most products that you would normally go and buy. Right. You would just you'd shop for a plug-in, for instance. You'd buy it, you have the plug-in, and that's it. That's the end of the relationship.
Exactly.
And it doesn't really give an opportunity for, I think, developers to really expand upon the vision of maybe what they originally wanted to deliver. And I think I think that maybe a subscription model allows that process to be iterative rather than just a one shot, one kill type of thing. That's just my perspective. But
absolutely. I like that. I agree with that. And it gives companies a chance to, make rather than just making products, we're making, that relationship with the, composers and producers that use our products, and it's a community. When people talk about output, they get excited because, it's a constant feedback loop of, we're here, we're real people, we're alive, and we're constantly dishing out something new for you. Rather than you just bought our product and who knows if you're going to get support when the next Mac OS update comes out or whatever.
Yeah. It holds you accountable as well as a developer. Like if you feel
absolutely
that, because if your customers are paying a subscription fee, then you've got to be on top of those updates. And it must be, I imagine that in a just kind of one-off type of scenario, that it can be difficult for a company to feel the need to justify continued support for older OSs when maybe that plugin isn't selling really anymore, and
right.
That, you're working on the big shiny new thing now,
Right.
and then people are saying, why aren't you supporting Windows XP anymore? With
Yeah. Yeah.
arcade on
Yeah.
Windows XP. And it's like, well,
Sure.
we're not really making any more money off of it. You've already kind of paid for the product, and you know,
Right. Right.
yeah. So whereas with a subscription based model, people are continually paying for it. So
Mhm.
there's the demands for the software company are also higher as
Right.
well. They
Right.
have to support those different things.
Absolutely. And Output's a company that really focuses on listening to feedback from customers. Uh, and it's really part of our iterative process when we're thinking about what's the next thing our products should do or our synths should do. Like we're looking at feedback from the community because really it's these synths and these products. They're for musicians by musicians, and we want to know what makes everybody's lives easier as composers and producers and artists. Yeah, so if there's ever those listening out there, if you ever you know want to reach out to Output and say something, like reach out, let us know, and we're always here, and our support team's awesome, and they'll get back to you, and we consider everything.
Awesome. So let's shift gears. We were talking about the Kadenze. So is it Kadenze or is it Kadenze?
Kadenze.
So it's
Yeah.
Kadenze. Okay.
Yeah. At first sight, it doesn't look like there's an A in there, but that's the way it is, I'm told. So from
Okay.
the powers that be. So
Nice.
Kadenze it is. Yeah.
So about what was it? About a year and a half ago,
Hmm.
you first announced that you were going to be doing a course with
Yep.
for developing plugins in Juice for Kadenze.
Yep.
Yeah, can you just describe what led to that decision? What kind of what the course is about, a little bit more just about the course, what sort of people that you would like to see check out the course.
Sure. Yeah. So the course, it's a collaboration between Kadenze and Output, and just a little history on that. As I mentioned before, I went to California Institute of the Arts and the music technology department there. They're the ones that started Kadenze. And so, Output and the Kadenze crew, we've gotten to know each other and decided, through proximity, like let's work on something together. So, so this is really Output's course featuring myself and Jake Penn, and it's a two-course series. Each course is split into multiple sessions, and it's really the first course is an introduction to audio programming and digital signal processing, just to be able to get people up and running and understand the domain that they're working in, and breaking down the concepts of discrete time, and how samples are represented in code, and how just how it all works, what you're getting into, what's sample rate, what's Nyquist, like what is all this stuff, what does it mean, and part two, then we go and we build on the foundation of what you learned in the first course, and we teach you how to take your DSP design and break it down into a modular, object-oriented way of writing it, so that way you can use your DSP modules in any fashion that you'd like, so you can rearrange your signal chain easily without having 300 lines of stuff in your process block, and not really sure how to take it apart and put it back together. But we're really breaking it down and compartmentalizing the DSP. And then after that, teaching the basics of the audio processor value tree state system, and how that connects the UI to the audio processor. And that's another new feature in Juice, just like not too new, but newish. New feature like the DSP modules. And again, when I started at Output, there was no value tree system. Everything was stick a knob on the screen and use a timer to refresh it, which is not the way we did it. But it was the kind of basic approach then. And things like that they work when you have 5 knobs on the screen, but when you have a really advanced UI, you cannot be refreshing it constantly.
Yeah.
So I teach you about all that stuff, and then how to set up your panel system within your UI, so that way you have a nice organized panel system of all the different parts of your app. And then we go into preset management and making your first manager class that allows you to handle the preset management of the audio processor. And then finally, we go in the last session. We put a little icing on the cake, and we go and skin the whole app, and we put a nice background in there and get some cool hover states going, and skin the knobs and all that fun stuff. Get some VU meters in there. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
It sounds super exciting, man.
Yeah. So I'm excited for anybody that's interested in looking into that. And you had asked like what can people expect signing up for a course like this. I would think that fundamental understanding or concept of object-oriented programming with C++ is definitely going to help you a lot understanding what we're doing. Because it's a juice course, it's an audio plugin course, so we couldn't possibly fit the fundamentals of C++ into there also. So if this is a class that you're interested in checking out, go look at some C++ primers, and check out the juice demos and start to get your head around it. If you're knowledgeable about code, I think you'll be able to look at juice and it'll make some sense.
Yeah. Well, the feedback I've heard in the community has been really positive and
wonderful.
People seem to have really good reviews about it. So I'm looking forward to checking it out myself and picking up a couple new skills.
Yeah, there you go, man.
Sounds like a lot of stuff that I haven't really gotten into myself.
Right. So well, let me know how you like it, and and if the feedback's strong enough, we might just go, make another one and build on top of those skills, the advanced course.
Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm about it.
Cool. Cool. I have another question here from Kazmir,
Cool.
who's wondering, when you're scouting people to hire, what sort of things do you look for? What do you look for in a software engineer when you're looking to hire a new member?
Totally. So what output looks for, I can't speak for every company, but what output looks for is somebody that's knowledgeable but teachable, right? You have to have the knowledge, but you have to be willing to learn and be a teachable person. It's really hard to work with people who think they know everything but don't. So it really helps when people are teachable and not defensive, and cultural fit. Like there's a certain culture at Output, and we're a fun group of people that have lives outside of work, and we all respect that, and we all vibe with each other and get along, and it's of course things get heated times, because that's how how it goes when you're working with teams, and we're all comfortable with each other, and it's all like family, so it's like a big family argument, and then it's a good place, and we're always just looking for people that are good fit culturally, and are knowledgeable and teachable, and
And how do you you were talking about people that are knowledgeable? How do you assess that? Do you do like a whiteboard interview? Do you have how do you actually assess that?
Right. Without giving away too much about our interview process, it's just like people being able to demonstrate the the fundamental concepts of what we're working with.
Okay.
You may not even know juice, but if you are an audio programmer and you have experience with C sound or something, and you're a good fit, then then it's something worth considering, there's a couple, when you're working at the professional level and you're getting hired as a full-time developer at a developer salary, you need to understand the domain that you're working in. For somebody like an intern, though, like they could know less because they're an intern, and they're going to be learning all that as they go. But somebody that represents themselves as knowledgeable should be able to demonstrate that knowledge. And it's not like some, crazy mathematical quiz or anything, but it's, it's like, just like know your stuff, know the domain you're in. Even if you're not in the professional field yet, like if you can demonstrate that, um, and you can, articulate that in an interview or something, that's good.
Let's, and just touching on interns and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you take on interns? Do you and this is another question that's commonly asked within our community.
Yeah.
What do people look? What do companies look for in an intern that makes you hireable in that for that sort of
Right.
position?
Right. Yeah, good question. It's similar to the previous answer. Somebody that is, for an intern, knowledgeable, but not on the level of professional. It's like if you've made some apps on your own. You have an app on your website, or you've got an app on the Apple Store or something for your little synthesizer that you made, or you've done some work for a nonprofit or something. Something that demonstrates that you've done more than just turn in homework assignments.
Yeah.
Even that is even that's okay for an intern.
Yeah.
And it depends. And somebody just again needs to be teachable. And it's all about timing too. Output doesn't always have the door open for interns, and when we do open the door for interns, so we'll usually accept one or two people, and when you're working with a team, especially a small team, somebody needs to be in charge of guiding the interns in the right direction, and not holding their hand so much, but still like mentoring them and pointing them in the right direction and setting them up for success. And whether people, you can set somebody up for success all you want, but whether somebody is willing to succeed for themselves, that's a whole nother topic. It takes some belief in the self and a willingness to learn and an eagerness to learn, and a commitment to the music technology field. It's if this field is what you're passionate about and you love everything music, and you want to go to all conferences and hear all the talks and watch all the audio programmer videos, like you're probably a fit. Exactly.
Great. So I've got some hope in the industry then.
You're in there. So I'm like, do you know this guy? We show pictures of different programmers to interviewees. It's like, who is this?
They'll see my picture and be like the guy that doesn't know how to code.
Not even.
Cool. So we got another question here from Cyberpunk on Twitter. He's saying, what are your thoughts on the application of machine learning to audio DSP? Do you have any thoughts on machine learning?
Machine learning using it for DSP?
Yeah. I'm assuming just in terms of machine learning in audio products within audio programming.
Right. It's definitely useful, and we're right on the cutting edge. Very useful tool for many companies, I'm sure. And machine learning, it can really benefit the musical process, but it's really figuring out where does something like machine learning fit into the musical process. Of course, you could train an algorithm with hours of techno and teach it how to play techno, but how does that benefit people who want to make techno? Like if I can just put the technoizer into a track in Ableton and hit record, then and put it on Bandcamp, then what's the damn point? So it's really trying to figure out where does machine learning really fit into the musical process. And I find it can be useful. I've seen some projects out there that use machine learning to group sounds that are similar in texture and timbre. And I don't remember the name of it at the moment, but there's some online step sequencer that has this machine learning organized cloud of little sample points. You move your mouse around it and they all sound very similar and they're all color coded. And, I think machine learning can be really beneficial for music organization, and pattern recognition, of course. You could use it to help you write melodies if you want, So I guess just really trying to figure out where it fits into the professional world.
Is it the future? Yeah. Do you think that it's the thing that, some people really really kind of swear by it and say it's the next thing. It's going to change. It's going to really change how people, or maybe not change, but transform or extend how people make music. Do you think that that's do you think that it's going to live up to the hype, or do you think that it'll maybe get halfway there?
It's hard to say. I have faith in machine learning, and I know it's, one of the biggest technologies used today. Whether it's used for music or not, it's in every aspect of business today. And any company worth their dollars putting some attention towards, machine learning and how it can, help people. Right now we use it to help with advertisement targeting and stuff. Not Output, but like companies in general, and it's just used. It's used in all assets of business, really, facets of business. So I really don't see why it wouldn't be part of the future. Back when the internet was just coming out, I think it was Windows 95 was just coming out. Bill Gates didn't believe the internet was the future, and then they scrambled together Internet Explorer.
Yeah,
we all know how that turned out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's like, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say, but
Yeah.
I have faith in machine learning 100%. And any business that ignores it is probably foolish.
And do you have any book recommendations for DSP for audio programming?
Book recommendation. That's a tough one. There's the DAF effects books, the DAFX audio effects books. Those are really good ones.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Is that the big one? Is that like the really huge kind of Bible, the audio programming?
Yeah. That's one of the big ones out there, and that one's been around for a long time. It's kind of old school though.
Yeah. I was told by I was with David Ziccarelli, who's the CEO of Cycling 74. He told me that Max MSP is just really like that line by line. Just
of that book.
Yeah, of that book. Just every line
amazing.
is just build an object that's just like that.
That's funny. Funny. Yeah, yeah. There's some good concept, of course. Good concepts in the Will Perkle books. I'm not too much of a fan of the stylistic choices or the code in that book.
Which book is that?
The Will Perkle books.
Oh, the Will Perkle books. Yeah, he's coming out with he's coming out with one in the spring. A new one.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have Will on here at some point.
Yeah.
But
I really think my favorite resource is just musicdsp.org.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can really find any like simple examples on there. And then if you're looking for open source ideas for code, like just go on GitHub and look through open source repos, and people post up there, their reverbs and their delays, just like, here's this thing I made, play with it, do what you want to it, and the internet's a really good resource. And when I need to, in the past, when I've needed to figure out if Juice can do something, I just usually look through the examples. Whether the way they've written the examples is helpful or not. Sometimes they're a little confusing and not, but if you can go on the Juice demo, and it's like, okay, here's this thing, it exists. Let me dissect it and see what they're doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'll have a situation where I need to build something similar to what Juice has, and what they have may not be exactly what I need, but I can go and look at the class that they have in Juice and kind of pull out the good parts and build my own.
Nice. Yeah. I've got a lot of book recommendations. I'll do a separate video on those at some point. But yeah, there's a couple good books out there.
Nice. Yeah, there's definitely a bunch of good C++ books out there. More so than audio programming books. Like there's some good books out there just regarding like C++ and object-oriented design and like how to structure that. Like those, I feel like the object design books are important, just as important as learning how, delay work. It's important to understand how to structure your classes and why, public and private are good things, and why you may need to use messaging asynchronously or synchronously. And, like there's a lot of concepts out there that go beyond the audio programming side of it.
Are you super at Output? Are you like super ultra modern C++, or are you
We use C++14.
Okay.
So we're relatively new, relatively old. We're just picking a stable version. We're when we have a framework that we've built and spent a couple of years building, uh, we basically sticking with the like at the moment the juice modules and like the C++ library standard that we're using for those. That way it can work on things like Windows 7. If you go to new school, you start to kind of leave the older systems behind. So kind of working with the systems that let us do things that we can connect to the internet from within a plugin, and then we can compile back to Windows 7 and stuff. And so we're not usually on the bleeding edge, but if there's something that we need, it's always up for consideration to upgrade it.
And what are your thoughts on like things like using auto for everything? Do you like
for everything? It's a little confusing.
Yeah.
Might as well write Python. But it's cool. But sometimes like auto's nice. Like I love auto for loops.
Yeah.
Like for auto object object array.
Yeah.
And it gives you access to it. It's pretty. It's nice. It's useful.
Yeah.
Better than having to iterate from 0 up to size every time.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, auto's nice. Yeah, auto's nice, but I clearly define like type definition.
Yeah.
For example,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. For example, this may be very peculiar, but I don't like using integer plus plus to iterate it. I like to say integer equals integer plus 1. And it's just really clear, so that way you can see like this value equals this value plus 1 right now. Just that way it's kind of just like cut and dry, because when you're working with other people, you want to write the code in a way that's going to relay the message to them of how to interact with this class without having to get up and walk to their desk or message them online or have a video conference about here's how this class works.
Yeah.
It's like you document it, you structure it, you put things in private that you don't want them to mess with. You make stuff const that shouldn't change. It's like it's all important. And just as much as telling the machine what you want it to do, you're telling the other developers what standard this object is being held up to. And if it looks this way, keep going this way.
Yeah.
But if you've got scope pointers here and unique pointers there, and you've got an asterisk on the left and then an asterisk on the right over here, you've got auto there and then float there, and it's like somebody else looks at it and they're like, this is a mess.
Yeah.
Like, what am I looking at? How do I work? And then what do? They realize there's no structure, and they just add it however they want to the class.
Yeah.
And then it comes back in, and it's just like, what the hell am I looking at?
Yeah.
So clean code helps other people working on it keep their code clean, and really helps deliver the message of like what standard that your code is up to.
Yeah. I'm a big advocate of I think they call it Occam's razor. There's this theory that says the easiest way is normally the best way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
It's a easy trap to fall into when you start learning fancy C++ to start using fancy C++ everywhere, and then other people look at it, and you've got I'm guilty. I've like gone too far on just some stylistic choices before, and everyone's like, "Hey man, can you bring this back? Can you put this just in a normal if-else statement, please?" Like, move the bytes around.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting one. I see some people in the community from time to time that they really get caught up in, and I think this goes to I have this theory that, and it's probably a theory that other people have already established a long time ago, that there are different types of C++ or different types of audio programmers. My theory is that you have some people that are kind of generally library coders, what I would call library people, that you would want them, maybe working on the Juice library, but you wouldn't want them necessarily creating a product for you. And then I think I tend to fall into the product maker category, whatever it takes, whatever it takes I got to win the battle. Whatever I got to learn to,
Absolutely.
whatever I got to learn to get to the finish line, I'm willing to learn
Absolutely.
it. But
Yeah.
I'm not the person to look at it and say, "Ooh, maybe we could use this obscure STL,
Yeah. Yeah.
function."
Right. Yeah. Reading research papers all day and
Yeah, yeah.
dry articles. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very like get the iteron on the screen and then
Right. Right.
and then
Yeah.
optimize it from there.
Right. Right.
Iterate,
Yeah.
constant iteration, not
Right.
optimization before iteration. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think I could do either.
yeah,
Really. I think my experience of coming from output and doing the movement thing, like basically on my own, was really teaching me how to be the product guy and the framework guy. And I take a lot of pride in maintaining our framework, our Atlas framework at output. At the same time, I'm more than happy to get some curved knobs on the screen or do some new cool UI stuff that we're not sure if we can do yet.
yeah,
You know, and I think it also, when you're working on a team, the longer you've been on a team, the more you've paid your dues, the more you let other people do the new experimental stuff and let them learn. Because there's some times when there's a task and it's like, yeah, I could do it in a day or two, but somebody else is going to take a week. But we have time right now, so we should let the other person take a week and learn how to do it, and then I'll go just focus on this other thing that's framework related.
that's
You
really
know,
cool.
yeah, it's how it's got to be. Because otherwise, it's like otherwise I'm just doing all the gnarly stuff all the time. It's like you guys got to learn how to do this.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
awesome, great. I don't know if there's anything else. Is there anything else
Okay.
that we've missed out on, or that you'd like to cover that we haven't covered yet?
Nothing particular. I'm just excited for this Kadenze course to come out.
Yeah.
It's been like a year and a half in the making or so, which is a lot longer than any of us anticipated. But we didn't really know the can of worms we were opening. We're like, oh, this is, when you make a course like this, rather than, me just jamming on Xcode with the screen share going for an hour or something. It's really like a full structured thing where, I had to write the plugin, our final plugin. And then I had to write a script about writing the plugin. Then you have to edit the script, and then you got to film it, and then you got to watch the rough cuts, and then you got to make the coursework, and then you got to watch the final cuts. And it's like this full like production process that as somebody that writes code all day, I didn't realize the scope of of how much work it was going to take. But here we are a year and a half later, and everything's pretty much ready to go out the door.
Yeah.
So I hope everybody keep their eyes peeled on that for next week if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah.
Sign-ups will be happening soon.
Yeah, and I think people, one thing that we talk about is because, of course, that advanced course costs a bit of money, and
Right.
when you're thinking about that price, it's important to think about all the work that's gone into that. So there's a lot of research.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there's a lot of research, and there's a lot of time, and like you were saying, a lot of editing that's gone into that. I mean,
Yeah.
I do a lot of I do all my tutorials for free, but I'm coming from a person
Right.
I'm coming from a perspective of a person that's just kind of gotten out of university and kind of
Right,
on the
right.
come up in audio programming, and whereas you have this perspective, which is a professional perspective of
Right.
having been in a professional company and worked on a
Mm-hmm.
number of industry grade plugins. And,
Right.
that cost is warranted for sure. So,
Absolutely. And I find here's where I find the cost justifiable is where rather than banging your head against the wall for a year and learning how to do things by trial and error, as I had to do, as Jake had to do, take a course like this and let us explain to you these are the foundational things that you want to learn. Like let's cut all the trial and error. Let's forget about doing things, having this wild idea to do it one certain way and then spending weeks coding it this way and realizing that I'm an idiot, this doesn't even work this way, and then having to back all the way up.
Uh-huh.
It's like a course like this is something that takes all the trial and error out of just learning the basics, and then you can do your trial and error on the advanced stuff. But it's like, who doesn't want to learn the basics, with somebody guiding them, like, this is how you do things. I find that very beneficial, and having had a mentor at California Institute of the Arts, CalArts. That was my mentor. He taught me Juice. I learned C++ in undergraduate, but he taught me Juice, and it was just super beneficial to have somebody there to help guide you and help you not make the mistakes. Just like I see this as the benefit that people find in what you do and in your channel, is that you're learning how to make this as you go, and people are learning through your learning experience. And rather than everybody having to bang their head against the wall on the same topics, like, let's look for some guidance, so that way we all don't have to bang our heads against the wall, and we can just learn it straight up the right way. So
exactly.
So good job. Yeah. So good job leading people on that path with your YouTube channel, and really becoming a community hub for audio development. And having been around the Juice community for a couple of years, I can see the rapport in the community has grown since your channel's come along, and it before your channel, it was like just the Juice forums, and now I see YouTube, and I see Discord, and I see other forums, and there was KVR, of course, then, and it's really fantastic to see what you've done with this, and I'm happy to be part of the audio development community. And everybody that I've ever had a chance to interact with in this community has been just fantastic people, and and we're all learning together, and we're all doing it, and it's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and like you said, I'm happy to be part of this community as well. And
Absolutely.
it's been an amazing opportunity for me so far. And
Yeah.
it's these things that that I think that it's these things that I think that we both share, which is just this desire to help the community, and
Absolutely.
to help spread knowledge so we all can become better developers. And
Absolutely.
I think as long as that stays at the center of everything, I think everything will fall into place.
Absolutely. And it's like with the internet, with the audio programmer community, and with Kadenze course, like, the resources to get learning are out there. You don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on going to school, if that's not something that that's for many, it's it's a limiting issue, limiting belief. Like, well, I can't afford to go to school. I work full time, I have a family, I can't afford to go to school. I've got to save up for my kids for college, or I've got a mortgage or my own student loan debt still. And people believe the finances is a barrier to them growing and learning. And if this relates to whoever's listening, the resources are there, and if you want to learn something, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. The resources are all around you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's one of the core reasons why I started the channel, was because learning in university, I had the fortune of had been in the U.S. Air Force, so my school was paid for. But I thought,
beautiful.
But I thought, well, this is for people that maybe they don't have this same opportunity, and they still want to get into this career field. So we can just set this up for people just to be able to learn. One of my ultimate goals is to be able to do something like this in like third world countries, like places like Kenya,
absolutely.
Kenya, India, travel around and do like audio programming hack for in Kenya. That would be so cool.
Right, absolutely, man. Yeah. Hey, you're planting the seeds right now.
That's right. We just keep on building.
That's right. There you go.
Good stuff.
It's a good goal to have. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you for having me here today.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really honored to be episode 2/3. I appreciate your time. I appreciate meeting you, and everything you're doing for the community.
Yeah.
And I'll be here. I'll be here with Output. We're going to be rocking it. We've got exciting things coming. So brace yourselves for 2019 because we got more on the way.
Awesome, man.
Really excited.
Can't wait to see it.
Absolutely, man.
Cool. All right.
Sweet.
Well, that's where we're going to end things. So thanks to everybody out there that's been listening. And be sure to check out the Kadenze / Output Kadenze Juice plugin course.
Yep.
The basic course is free. And then you have the advanced course, which is $500. Is that right? 500.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, correct.
So
Yeah, and there's also from what I've read online, I think there's like some sort of like monthly type setup with Kadenze also. If people don't want to do the 500, there's also a scholarship program that Output's working on right now that we'll be announcing really soon. Yeah.
Sweet. Sounds good. Great. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.